Not everyone is happy this Valentine's Day. It could be a challenging holiday, especially if you're alone, but a new book may offer some solace. It's called How to Be Alone If You Want to, and Even If You Don't. Author Lane Moore dives deep into the pain of loneliness.
Written from a queer perspective, the essays are personal and also pragmatic about how feeling alone can shape our romantic choices and how we relate to our friends and family. So Lane Moore is a stand-up comedian, musician, and the creator of the comedy show Tinder Live, and she joins us now to talk about how to be alone. Good to see you.
Yeah. Good morning.
So, all right. So we were obviously fascinated by this subject because even before we came out of the commercial, we were talking to you about it and sort of sharing with you our feelings about being alone and not being alone. Anne-Marie's an only child. I grew up feeling isolated from a lot of people and learned to love being alone.
Right. That's kind of why the if you want to and even if you don't, because I know it kind of separates into two paths where you're just like, so I think that there are people who, that's why I love talking to you before the show, because I think there are people who always felt isolated, and it makes total sense to just be like, okay, well, maybe I'm just not supposed to have a tribe and I'm just gonna be my own tribe, and that's fine. And I think that that's totally fine. And I think it's also fine to still struggle and want to find your tribe. And I think that I'm probably somewhere right in the middle of both of you, because I go back and forth between being like, well, I didn't really feel like I fit in as a child, and I don't feel like I fit in now, and maybe that's okay. Maybe I'm just a loner, and that's good, and that's fine. And then I have moments of like, oh, but wouldn't it be cool if I had like that group of friends like on TV where we see each other all the time, we hang out, they totally get me, and they bring me soup when I'm sick, and like I go back and forth, and then being like, no, but I'm cool, and I don't need it because I'm not like that. And it's like, but I think that so much, of the messages that we've been fed from TV and movies really tell you that either you have to be the cool loner who doesn't like anybody, and I'm not saying that that's what you are, but it's these two, very, very extreme things of just like, we're told that the loner doesn't like people, and that's, that's certainly not you, but it's like, the loner doesn't like people, or people who have all these friends and it's really easy for them. And I think that for so many of us, it's a little bit murkier. It's not that simple.
We should let people know that part of what we were talking about before we started is sort of the difference between Vlad and I. And I, being an only child, have said that I've always sort of been looking for my tribe, like the people that I belong to, and not really finding an exact place to fit in. And Vlad was saying, well, he decided that he doesn't need a tribe, and, he's fine sort of being alone. But I think what we all sort of have to deal with is this overwhelming message from the media. This is how you're supposed to. I mean, you talked about television, right? Yeah. Where's your group of cool friends that you hang out at the same coffee shop together?
Why don't you have it? Because you don't want that.
So how do you fight against that messaging?
Yeah, I mean, I think, kind of realizing one of the things that I wanted the book to do was kind of explore a lot of the childhood dynamics, I think, that create that. And, I'm not a psychologist, but I am somebody who's examined my own life enough to really know that and really be able to observe these things. Yeah. So I didn't really have the solid family support system that you're supposed to have as a kid. And I realized, how much more as a child that made me really, really want friendships, because if you don't have what you're supposed to have at home, you go to school and you're like, where are my people?
Right.
You need that as a child so intricately. And so then, you become older. And I think especially if you're LGBTQ or anything like that, then there's this extra added layer of like, oh, I'm not like everyone else. But I think that, even if that's not a factor, there's still, for anybody who's different or maybe a little bit more sensitive or maybe weirder or whatever it is, anybody who doesn't conform in the way that everyone wants you to, I think it can be really hard to connect.
That was me. And I think one of the most profound quotes I ever heard wasn't Thomas Jefferson or Aristotle. It was Groucho Marx saying, I would never want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member. Because I just started to remember thinking to myself, like, I'm my own person, my own individual. And you talk about something in the book called attachment theory.
Absolutely.
How does that play into our relationship or lack thereof?
I think it really, really does. And learning about attachment theory was such a huge turning point for me that I wanted to include it in the book in a really easy, fun way, because a lot of books I've read about attachment, you're like, this has some cool info, but I'm tired. So I wanted to write it in a really accessible way. Attachment theory is basically, as I understand it, is really about how you attach to your parents or your family or things like that as a kid is often how you attach to people now. So if you weren't able to safely attach to your family, then you might.
Fascinating.
Right? It's very fascinating. And I really liked putting it in my own story of, wow, realizing that a lot of my friendships that I'm attracting are very similar to my problematic family attachments. And now I'm doing that. So there's basically 3 core ones. There's secure attachment. So that's like you're able to attach to people really easily. It's not a problem for you because you were easily able to attach to your family as a kid. That was safe to do for you. There is anxious attachment, which is where you want to get close to people, but you're always kind of afraid they're going to leave or you're going to do something wrong or something's going to happen, because that was a similar dynamic in your childhood. That's me. And then there's avoidant attachment, which is like you want to attach to people, but you feel like you don't really deserve it, or you're just too scared and you don't want to do it. So it's like you'll kind of start to, and then you'll just like ghost them, essentially.
Well, it's interesting.
And then some combinations.
Because that attachment theory, we did another book segment earlier, and we talked about like the lessons of Buddhism and Zen thinking, which is that you should detach yourself from almost everything in life that people tell you you should be attached to. And that includes your own life. In other words, the fear of death is something that Buddhists try to escape from. And you say in the book that unlearning the idea that a soulmate will show up and fix everything, I've always sort of thought of it in terms of just all the things that encompass our lives, whether they're our jobs, our families, our loved ones, our children, our pets. All of those things, ultimately, once you learn to detach yourself from them in a way that is beneficial to you, can lead to greater happiness.
I think so. And I think that we particularly tell women that this is your narrative. Like, if you don't have this man who comes to rescue you and save you from your horrible life of not having him, you know, then what is your point of existing? We really do. You know, we program men kind of in this way, but not really, not in that same intensity of this like need to be completed. And you feel like we've made progress, but we still haven't, because we've still, even if you made progress now and you're an adult, you still heard those messages your entire life. So we still all feel like, and even with men, you know, even if they haven't been told that like you need a woman, which is very heteronormative, but like to complete you, you've still been told that like you need your best friend who's going to complete you. We're still all told that we need these perfect people. And I think it can create this sort of panic, and the Buddhist connection is very accurate, because then you become incredibly dissatisfied with what you have right now. You become obsessed with the past, like, oh, remember when I was dating so-and-so? And it's like, so-and-so wasn't great either. They were just someone. But, or like, oh, in the future, I got to get to this. And you miss this beautiful period of maybe that you can learn to love yourself and become your own best friend and become a partner to yourself.
All good advice. We are changing lives today.
We are, man. Lane Moore, thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.